All right. Point number uno, or un for all of you in French,
is
communication.
Communication. Okay.
Funny story about communication. My grandparents, I asked them, what's the number one thing you'd recommend for a healthy marriage that's long lasting? Both of them separately gave the same answer. And that was communication. I'd say the first thing that communication helps with is eliminating assumption. Myself, I struggle with communication at times. It's a learning opportunity for me. And I'd say that some of the times that have caused a rift between Jordan and I, speaking from our own relationship, has been when there's a lack of communication, especially with my plans, because I'm not always the best at getting back to her with text messages. I'm also not the best about communicating what is my schedule for the week. What do I have coming up? What are some important things that are going on for me? And ultimately what that did was it led to an assumption that my time was open for us when it really wasn't. How did that make you feel, babe?
So with a lack of communication on Zane's end, my heart felt rejected and a bit forgotten. And I felt like all of a sudden my priority in his life had dropped. And I had all these assumptions on my end that we would be hanging out this time, or, oh, if he's free in the morning, then we could just either FaceTime or call or be texting all morning. And because I was assuming these things, there was a big gap in our communication. So it's very important that you're not only avoiding assuming what the other person is thinking, but communicating beforehand and reaching out to the other person's heart to say what they need to hear.
And here's how I would recommend that you think about this. Is that it's not that you have to tell that person everything you're doing, but it's more that this relationship, it's a partnership. And your partner deserves to know what's going on to help take care of their heart.
That's super good.
Yeah. What else communication also help with, babe?
Communication, well, a big part of it helps with rejecting passivity. So for me, that means in a relationship when sometimes Zane does something that frustrates my heart, he may not know it.
Never happens.
No,
don't know.
It's all great. So my personality, I get really nervous and I kind of get bundled up and I have a hard time being vulnerable. Like, hey, this hurt my heart. So I avoid it and I say, no, it's okay, or no, I'm fine, or don't even address the subject. And then it happens again, and it happens again, and it happens again. And all of a sudden, I'm kind of snowballing all of my emotions and I'm really frustrated. And sometimes I get mad at him at things that have nothing to do with the first thing that happened. And it's all because I was being passive in my emotions and in my feelings. So when you reject passivity and you're vulnerable to that person who you've brought into your life and you trust them and you're open with them, you can communicate things that they didn't even realize hurt your heart. And it opens up this whole opportunity to be honest with each other. And
Yeah, that's really good. And again, that goes for both partners in the relationship, because I know sometimes one of the things that we've walked through is during an argument, sometimes, again, like she said, it's a snowball effect. So it's not just me finally releasing this feeling I've been having with her, or something that's been on my heart. Now I've released everything else that I haven't communicated during that time. And ultimately, that's just not fair for someone, because it can be overwhelming in a conversation or argument. And so ultimately, when you bring things to the forefront and you communicate your feelings and how things have been going on for you and stirring your heart, it allows your partner an opportunity to address that and move forward and really grow.
Absolutely. Way to go.
Yeah.
Great communication.
Thanks, babe.
On Zane's end.
Thanks, babe. You as well. Right back at you.
Thanks.
All right. Point number 2.
Dos, or
de, for all of you taking French,
is
balance of time.
Wow, that's such a good one. I'm going to type this one in.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd say the first point of balance of time is balancing your pursuit of each other. So there's multiple factors that go in this. I'm going to first draw back to our time during the summer prior to our senior year of high school. The first half of that summer, Jordan really remembers all of this. It's quite vivid because that first half, we were hanging out every single day.
Yep.
It was great.
So
Loved
much
it. But what I did is that I blocked out everybody else. And I blocked out my other friends. I blocked out time for my family. And ultimately, my whole world revolved around Jordan. So for me, I love math. So my idea was that I'm going to take this scale, and to level it out, you have to completely go polar opposites. So then I flipped everything else, and I made no time or pursuit of Jordan's heart. And I only pursued my friendships with my guys because that was really important to me. I felt called to go be with them. But again, with that, this even goes back to communication. I didn't let Jordan know about my heart until it had finally hurt her. And ultimately what this draws into is when you have a whole balance in your life, really what it does is it fulfills you and fills you up when you're with that person to be able to give your best in that moment. But also it just takes care of their heart, and it doesn't leave them by the wayside, because going polar opposites is not the best way to go.
Very true.
Yeah.
A lot of emotions totally come back with balancing out your time in a middle school, more high school, which our experience was a high school relationship. So I'll speak to that. And one thing we recognize, which I'll totally speak to and encourage, invest into your relationships. When you're in a relationship, that does not mean you drop everything else. Invest into your family, your friendships. If you're part of something in school, a sport or a club, or, you have that time with your family, stay invested, because it's such an amazing season of life where you have all these opportunities, and those friendships are important. They matter, and people notice. I've had friends communicate to me, hey, I feel like we've lost this time together, because it's true. You get connected to a person, you're like, oh, this person's fun. Oh, I'm intrigued by this relationship. And it's like, I'm going to do everything I can to make it work. But doing everything you can doesn't mean spending all of your time in that area. It actually weakens the relationship. So stay invested into other relationships and in your relationship with Jesus. I mean, keep those relationships tight and intact. Keep them a part of your relationship.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, babe. That's what I'm talking about.
Thanks.
All right. Are they ready?
I don't know. I'm not ready.
For point number
3. What?
What's that in Spanish?
Tres.
My best friend. One of them. Or trois.
Or
For
trois.
all of you taking French. What is it, babe?
This is probably one of my favorite ones. Ready? Lightheartedness / fun. Wow, fun. Anyone just love, like, when you have those moments that stick out, you're like, man, I had a fun day. Like, it was lighthearted. It was easy. I wasn't stressed about this or planning for this. Those are just my days. Ugh, I love them.
Yeah. I'd say that some of the times that I remember most with Jordan and just joy-filled moments is are times when we were just in the moment with each other, which is especially difficult for someone like me. I don't know how many of you can actually relate with this, but I know there's some out there, because I'm someone that loves to focus on the big picture of things as well as the plans that put that into action. And so it's easy for me to lose track of being present with Jordan and just focusing on the things that are stressing me out, or big picture things that I need to handle, such as in this season, been trying to find a place to live, right?
Yeah.
And that consumed a lot of my time, which took my focus away from enjoying these moments with her. I'd say, honestly, one of my favorite weeks that I had with her was last summer, when we actually went to California together, and we went to Disneyland. Yes, it may be the most magical place on earth, but ultimately it was because we just dropped everything else.
Yeah.
And we decided to just be with each other and make the most of this moment, right? Yeah. If we're going to tie this back to living water, it's about not missing this moment, right? And I didn't want to do that with Jordan, because I had planned on marrying her from the get-go, right? And with that, I wanted to be able to draw back to and come back to these lifelong memories that we could always hold and cherish together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, babe.
Yeah.
I love that.
What else would you have to say about lighthearted fun?
Well, okay, so a few months ago, Zane and I, before we were engaged, but we kind of had talked about, just next steps, marriage and whatnot, we decided to go through the Love and Respect Crazy Cycle. It's a book and kind of a discipleship for people in relationships. And we decided, let's do this. Let's go through it. Let's challenge ourselves a little bit. And one really big takeaway that we got from it was focusing on picking your battles. So we got challenged to do this. We are both awesomely driven, but yet stubborn people. We have our focuses, we have our desires, and we're very vocal about them. And it led to a lot of little fights.
Yeah.
Just my opinion against your opinion and my desire against your desire. And we were challenged to, in the moments that we'd have a little fight, take 24 hours, one day, and if it was worth it, come back to it. And I thought that was crazy because I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to spend a whole day feeling like this and just like pretend everything's okay and move on. But it allowed our mindset to shift. And it wasn't just about us like holding in our emotions for 24 hours. Rather, it was picking our battles, deciding, was this worth it? And I will say, and you would too, about 75% of those little arguments were not worth it. We'd come back to it the next day and be like, oh yeah, wait, did we want to talk about this? And it was pretty much like, no, I think I'm good. And the moments that did really matter, we got to look at each other and say like, hey, it's been a whole day and this still is heavy on my heart. I'd like to talk about it. Yeah. So these kind of challenges and opportunities allow you to pick your battles because it's important. You got to know what's worth fighting for without fighting against each other. So,
Yeah. Okay. I'd say to that effect, it's also just breaking down the crazy cycle. It was about what's really the problem when the issue isn't the issue, right? And so one thing that really helped combat that and help us move past that was, again, that lighthearted fun of just making the moments every day together. Finding one little time to just literally sit down, look each other in the eyes, set aside all other distractions, and have just some moments with each other. And those were probably the most precious moments that I'll always remember. So point number 4.
What? Wow. Oh, wait.
There you go.
My favorite hand.
Inviting others in.
Wow. This is big.
Yeah. And what I mean by that is finding a wise counsel to surround yourself with of others that are already on the same path that you are, but farther along where you want to go, and consulting with them of how they got there, as well as how to get through what you're currently going through. And I think you have a great point about an outside perspective on things.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. So when people say to date your best friend, which let me just say, huge benefit. It is a super fun aspect of the relationship, dating the person who makes you laugh, who makes those fights worth it, who you are slowly growing to know and probably really good friends with before you date. It is amazing, but it also means you kind of want to go to them about everything. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to some of my best friends, they are like they just kind of like pick up everything I dump. I vent to them. I get it all out to them. And some of it's good, healthy communication, and some of it is just blech, which I think we can all relate to. And when you date your best friend, you often feel like just venting and dumping to them. And one thing I had to learn, because I had a really bad habit of just saying, you did this, my heart this, and this, and exploding and all of these things against him. And I wanted to learn, how do I say exactly like what I'm trying to say without all these other kind of distracting feelings or emotions that got us off track? And one of our high school mentors gave me the advice to, seek counsel on the outside of the relationship. And whether that's both of us having mentors that we talk to or independently having someone else to communicate to, going to them and really allowing them to help you figure out, one, the why behind why your heart is hurting, and the how, which means how you should communicate to your partner and to your person, like what you can do about that. Because it allows just that communication to kind of, take a breath and actually create opportunity to move forward, not just saying all these accusatory things. It helps you to fight for the relationship. So
I'd say, to add on to that, again, my point back in the beginning is that wise counsel is so important, because surrounding yourself with the right people is just as important, in my opinion, as surrounding yourself with people. Because ultimately, when you're in a relationship together, it's also not just you that's in that relationship that helps hold it together. It's that supporting cast around when everything is kind of shifting back and forth to help push you back together. And for us, that was finding a couple that had already had experience, a couple that we really respected, a couple that was already, again, down the road from where we desired to be. And for us, that was Evan and Kira. Shout out to Mr. G, especially his workouts. Go find his workouts on Instagram, Mr. G Workouts. That's what's been getting me ready for the honeymoon. But anyways, point to be said is, I knew that, especially for me, in my own desire to be the man that's worth marrying, Jordan, I looked to Evan a lot for just counsel and advice about how to communicate, what's worth it, and just helping me walk through that. Because, like Jordan alluded to, just relying on each other to help vent and bounce ideas back and forth off of it just doesn't work, because sometimes you're in the present and you need someone with that outside perspective to look in and say, hey, we've been there. Here's how we got through it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And to that note, it's awesome. Get that outside perspective. But it is your relationship and it's your heart.
Yeah.
I would definitely suggest guarding your heart. Don't invite everyone in. Speaking from experience, it's easy, especially in high school. You know, when you run into people and they ask you, how's your day going, or this or that. Sometimes it's just like, I kind of know you, but I'm going to tell you everything because I'm just, feeling built up in my emotions. And they may give you advice that is the complete opposite of what you need to hear. Totally get advice, but invite in the right people. Don't just tell everyone what's going on, because not everyone has the perspective or the experience that you might need to actually gain something from a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really a good thing.
No, thanks.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Tip number 5.
5, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6?
Wow.
No, 5. Oh, Cinco de Mayo.
I was about to give you a shout out, but that's revoked. Anyways,
5.
Point number 5, which I would say is by far the most important.
Yes.
Take note of this, because this is going to be the glue for your relationship, and that's keeping Jesus at the center. And when I say Jesus at the center, I mean both for your own life and for your relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
One thing I'd like to point out too is just keeping him at the center of your own relationship, because I know that when Jesus is king of my life, it helps me be a better man for Jordan in our relationship. Jesus helps me keep humility when I know that I'm wrong, and I need to just humble myself in that moment. Jesus helps me keep grace with her when I know that sometimes she's maybe having a tough day, or when we just need that grace, because he shows us grace. Jesus just helps me be more like him. And ultimately, I heard this from my Pastor Frankie Longoria, man who helped bring me to Christ. At his wedding, I heard it said from Chris Allen. Some of you may not know him, but wise man, if you ever get to meet him, great. He said, the best way to love her and pursue her and support her is by loving Jesus and keeping him above everything else. And when you let him lead your own life, that in turn helps lead your relationship. Yeah. And it also helps with idolization, right? Because when anything else replaces Jesus as my king and my center for my whole life and every decision that I make, such as putting Jordan on a pedestal, ultimately, that's the best way to set yourself up for failure. Because while I love Jordan and she is gorgeous, and she helps me get through the toughest of times, she's still human.
Yeah.
She's still not Jesus. She represents Jesus, but she isn't Jesus. And so when I rely on her for all things in my life, ultimately there's going to be a day when she inevitably lets me down, and I'll let her down. And so with that idolization, it just takes your focus off. And again, it takes you down this path of no success. So, yeah.
So good. It's so true. Talking about that relationship with yourself and with Jesus, one thing I would 100% speak to is knowing your worth.
Yeah.
Because it is, relationships are a beautiful thing. They're a beautiful aspect that we get to, bring joy and love into someone else's life. But it's very hard to have that joy with someone and have that love when we don't know the love of Jesus and when we don't feel his joy. It makes things deeper. It makes things stronger. It actually makes a relationship worth it. Yeah. I'll be honest, a lot of things in relationships, they get hard. We've all had those moments where there is struggle or there's frustration. Jesus makes people worth it.
Yeah.
So I would definitely speak to focusing on Jesus at the center in your own life. And then when it comes to Jesus being at the center of our relationship, man, it is world changing. Zane has always said for us, it's Jordan plus Jesus plus Zane. It's the reminder that he's not just an aspect of the relationship, but he's the foundation. He is the one we go to for all of our great moments, all of our hard moments. He's the one we praise in all things.
Yeah.
He gives us moments of just fresh air when we're carrying weights that we weren't meant to.
Yeah.
He brings forgiveness in when you're in a relationship. He brings in joy in moments that you have a hard time seeing it. And I would definitely say there is power in prayer with one another. Prayer for me takes a lot of boldness. I know in a relationship, it's hard because sometimes I feel like, is this the moment? Do I say this or do I say that? But man, to all of you, whether it's in a relationship or not, God is going to use you in prayer. So be bold in it.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to having a person in your life, God's going to use you to speak into them. And he's going to use that through prayer. So be bold in your prayer with one another. If God puts something on your heart, speak it. If you're going through something tough, whether it's just you or with each other, pray over it. Invite Jesus in over and over. Definitely make him the center.
Yeah.
He's the best part of our highs and our lows. Because when it's all awesome, we give him all the praise. And when it's hard, we give him all of the praise because he is the good in everything. So, yeah.
Woo!
Gosh.
Side tip, find you a girl that loves Jesus like Jordan. Way to go, babe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Seriously. And know your worth. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Listen, you're in a relationship. You are great. You are awesome. Encourage them. But the moment they say, hey, you're frustrating me, you're not so great, don't go home and look at yourself in the mirror and be like, am I not great anymore? Like, did I lose all this? He thought I was worth it, and now we broke up. Am I not worth it anymore? Listen, be strong in knowing that your worth comes from Jesus.
Yeah.
And you don't have to earn it in that relationship with him. And you don't have to earn that love in your relationship with him. Zane is great, but he's human. He's going to be hard on me, and he's going to need to have grace. And I'm going to be hard on him and need to have grace. But with Jesus, he forgives with no question. He loves without limitations. And he leads us completely into that forgiveness. So just remember, you are worth his love.
Yeah.
And it doesn't depict anything the person you're with says.
Amen.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well.
God is good, right?
God is real.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man, if that wasn't a way to wrap up our 5 tips, I don't know what could have been. So we're gonna close this out. And
I didn't know if you wanted to go through them again, just real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You want to remind them about our 5 tips?
I think I'm just on a roll. If you can't tell, I'm I think we need to say it.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, communication. 2, balance of time. 3, lighthearted fun. 4, invite others in. And 5, Jesus at the
center.
Wow.
Center.